Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX. I'm Megha Sharma, and this is a very special episode of Waku 75 Years of India and the World. I'm right now at the Danish Embassy in the national capital, and with me is His Excellency Freddy Svane. It's good to have you, Ambassador, on the broadcast with us.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm thrilled and happy and really looking forward to answer your questions.
My first question to you, the association that traditionally goes back several decades, even before the independence, from the 1960s, 1800s even, when it came to the Danish coming to India, colonizing certain sections of India, particularly down south, Tamil Nadu, Nicobar Islands. Since then, how has the trajectory been for India and Denmark?
Rightly, you mentioned that we came to India many, many centuries ago. In fact, we have just celebrated 400 years of anniversary of our ties with India. But let me take us to the modern India, independent India. Denmark was one of the first countries recognizing diplomatically modern independent India. We did that in 1949. Over the years, we have been part of the modern independent India's trajectory. However, I think rightly said that under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, our ties have really expanded and they have been taken to a very, very almost unprecedented level. And we have what we call a green strategic partnership. Also important to mention that we have had 3 summits between our Prime Minister and Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, the last 3 years. So I think we are having the best relationship ever.
I'm going to just go back a few years, in fact several years, when India just gained independence, and it was our first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, who initiated this bilateral contact with Denmark. If you could shed a little bit light into the historical significance of the cultural ties, but also trade ties, particularly when it comes to technology, education.
Hi. Prime Minister Nehru, in fact, paid a visit to Denmark in June 1957. So he was the first Prime Minister of modern India who came to Denmark. He met with his then Danish colleague, and they had a very, very cordial tie. And they started the cooperation. And I think it's important to keep in mind that Denmark, we have been part of what you call the White Revolution. Dr. Kurian, how to increase the yield from Indian cows. We're also part of the Green Revolution. We had a company, we still have a company called Topsoe, and they were part of building up the fertilizing industry of India. So we have been part of a number of very, very important milestones in the development, economic development, societal development of modern India. Trade-wise, it could be even better, but I think what we have embarked upon these years with the Green Strategic Partnership will automatically lead to an increased trade investments from Denmark to India, but also the other way around. And we have seen that. Week by week, we see new investments from Denmark, we see new investments from India. And just yesterday, Oyo announced quite a big, significant investment in Denmark in the summer residence segment for tourism and so forth. So it's important.
There was Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was on a visit to Europe very, very recently. He met with the Danish Prime Minister as well. Do you think there is going to be then an increased impetus when it comes to, like you mentioned, the other bilateral trade investments that come forth from Denmark to India and vice versa?
Yes, of course, it has to come like that. And that's the whole idea of embarking upon these summits. It's not just to meet and have a nice chat about global issues or regional issues or even bilateral issues. It's about 3 things which is important. How do we secure an increased contribution from Denmark to India, from India to Denmark when it comes to innovation, when it comes to job created, as well as trade, meaning exports and investments. These 3 objectives are something that we are sharing, and we would like to expand that at all levels. And that's why we're here, and that's why my very dear colleague, the Indian ambassador to Copenhagen, Pooja Kapoor, is also working hard. So it's 24/7, And I tell you, I guarantee you that when you come back next year, we will see even stronger commitments from the private sector, public sector on both sides.
Is there likelihood of the Danish Prime Minister to be visiting India anytime soon?
Now we will soon have elections in Denmark, so we need to pass through that. But given the sequences of the summits that we have had the last years, I'm pretty sure that we'll continue seeing an exchange at that level even. So I'm extremely optimistic, and being the ambassador, it's my role to secure that India and Denmark, that we share the same trajectory and we have full understanding, mutual understanding of where we are, what kind of development we are going through, and that also, of course, will lead us into what we are doing concretely to secure investments, expanded ties culturally, and people-to-people exchanges.
Now, there was perhaps, if I could call it, a chink in the armor with regards to the Ukraine-Russia war that has drawn the attention of the world, and particularly the West. And Europe has been equivocal in its resentment towards the Russian invasion into Ukraine. There have also been appeals that have been made by various European nations, United States of America, including Denmark, going about asking India to take a stance with regards to this East European war that has completely changed the trajectory of how the world looks upon the strategic ties that are built and the blocks that are created. What do you understand of India's current position that has been neutral and goes about showcasing an aggressive, strong stance when it comes to India and India's policy towards the world and the nations that it allies with?
Important question. The first answer will be as follows. I'm now 65 years of age, and I never thought that I would see a war happening on ground in Europe. I mean, we all saw the devastating consequences of the two world wars, and everything was done in order to build up structures to avoid war, and thereby also, of course, secure that all the casualties, fatalities that we had seen and witnessed, that would no longer be part of our history or daily life. Unfortunately, we had the Russian aggression has been condemned, should be condemned, and so forth. It's a war that happens in Europe on the ground. India has taken its stand. We have discussed with the Indian side. We understand the Indian position. India comes from a different context, and I think it's important to bear in mind that what we are doing now is really trying to exchange views, having frank discussions, but also to secure that we align whenever it's possible. And I'm not condemning India. I think it's not right to condemn India. India is defining its own national interest, and the reason why they have taken this position very consistently, I think it's understandable and it can be explained. So my role out here has also been to convey to Copenhagen why India decided to stay neutral, and I think they have stayed neutral. So they are not pro-Russian, they are not pro-Ukrainian. They are trying, and they have appealed for negotiations, ceasefire and all that. And that's what we should expect from a country and a nation like India.
Okay. I'm also going to move your attention to the bigger crisis that is taking place in the Indo-Pacific region. And the world at this point of time is unilaterally focusing on that. I mean, it has been forced to because of the Chinese aggression that is being seen not just within the subcontinent, not just within the South China Sea and East China Sea, but also when it comes to the West. Is there a new world order that you at this point of time witness? How is Denmark going to then go about shifting its policies in terms of the aggressor that is being witnessed as something in a violation of a number of a number of trade associations, number of treaties, conventions, international conventions that have been flouted n number of times by China?
Also, a very important question. While discussing and answering your questions, we are sitting in India. India, since its independence, has always been arguing for peace, harmony, peaceful solutions. That's part of the Indian context. Yet we see across the world a lot of tensions or almost warlike situations arising, and how to deal with that. It's extremely challenging times, and I will personally be a little bit worried about what is the next thing that we are going to see. We spoke earlier about the Ukraine war. Now we have the Chinese-Taiwanese issue. You have had your, and you still have your issues with China on the land border. I still remember the Galvan issue, how India stood up bravely in Galvan Valley, and I think you did the right thing there. But it's not the same that we should give up. I mean, and I'm a strong believer in India playing its role. India is a huge nation. It's not a country. It's not even a nation, I call it. It's a living civilization. So I'm constantly arguing, I'm constantly promoting the view that India could and should take a much more prominent role in securing global order and peace. India is the world's largest democracy. And to have a democracy of that size, where you can, if you don't like the prime minister, you can cast your vote and you can have a new prime minister and so forth. So that kind of strength is also part of what I will call the kind of moral obligation to do whatever you can in order to secure peace at all times in all parts of the world. And 1.4 billion Indians representing the world's greatest or the largest democracy could and should do something more, seen from my point of view.
And moving a step forward, talking about the P5, and there have been massive protests from the West that have been led by the United States of America when it comes to the proposal of removing Russia from P5 in terms of the aggressive nature that has been showcased by the nation. There have been similar appeals when it comes to India looking forward to be part of this P5 in wake of the growing stance in Asia, in the Indo-Pacific, in the Indian Ocean region, which has become an epicenter when it comes to strategic military and geopolitical strategies that are being built, whether it is Quad, whether it is AUKUS, and perhaps the ASEAN also hoping to join into perhaps a Quad plus if it could be formed, depending on how aggressive the situation becomes in the Indo-Pacific region. How would Denmark, as a United Nations member and part of the European Union, then go about putting its stance in that regard?
Denmark has consistently supported the wish of India to become a permanent member of the Security Council. We have done that when your Honorable Prime Minister was in Denmark in early May this year. Our Prime Minister once again reiterated that position. And we believe that this world can only be much better and more peaceful and more representative if countries that are based on democracy will work together. India, as I said, the largest democracy, and it will develop into the greatest democracy at some point of time. We need to have India being part of the global decision-making bodies, including the Security Council. You have just been rotating member of the Security Council, and I think you have also brought up topics, issues that we also share, maritime security and so forth. So it's just another important sign that India is ready to take a global responsibility, and the world is longing for that. So we hope that with the under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, who is recognized as a global leader, that we'll see even more, let's say, global awareness, preparedness from India to be part of what we need, namely to secure a better, more peaceful and more prosperous world.
Absolutely. I'm going to talk about the soft power associations that can be people-to-people contact is what you spoke about, cultural associations, association via sports, and the focus has to be brought back to the Davis Cup 2022 that took place in India since 1966, decades ago. Denmark and India, of course, fought it out, and it was the Indian team that ended up winning. Can more of these associations be taken forth? And how was your experience per se, witnessing this entire spectre of bonhomie that has been initiated via sports?
It goes without saying that people-to-people exchanges are so important. I mean, to have government-to-government contacts and regular meetings and even summits, of course, that's part of the game and that's needed and so forth. But you will never ever be able to translate all these ambitions if you do not have structures, programs and so forth that will secure exchange between the populations and people on both sides. And therefore, I'm extremely happy that when Honorable Prime Minister was in Denmark in May, we also signed an agreement about cultural exchange. I mean, India is a rich nation also culturally. I called it a living civilization. So later this year we'll have a textile exhibition and so forth. We're trying to bring our people together when it comes to art and so forth. Sports, of course, a different chapter. I have to congratulate you with your victory when the Davis Cup was played. Great to see Indian sports people, and now you're also really doing fantastically at the games in Commonwealth Games.
Yes.
So it's really good, and I'm still remembering a little bit from not my childhood, but being a young person, when Prakash Padukone was playing badminton in Denmark.
Yes.
And his lovely daughter was in fact born in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So if she listens to this, I hope one day she will come and celebrate her nation of birth, if I may use this word. But having said that, it's really, really important to have these exchanges. And during my first tenure out here, we had an old boys cricket team from Denmark, and they came out, and the guy who was heading that, in fact, had a very, very good Indian friend, and they had played professionally in the cricket league in England. So, I mean, sport is something that we have to nurture and so forth. So I think we have a bright future also when it comes to sports and cultural exchange, and we need that. Absolutely.
And before I let you go, Ambassador, one message that you would like to give to the people of India on their 75th independence year, and also when it comes to the people of India and Denmark and our increased association in terms of trade, in terms of cultural ties, in terms of everything else that encapsulates bilateral relationships between the countries.
First and foremost, I would like to congratulate all you, the Indians, on your Independence Day. I was there sitting on the ramparts of the Red Fort, 15th of August 2014. I've also been there before. And I still remember, I can even sense how vibrating that first speech of your Honorable Prime Minister was when he was talking about opendification and Swachh Bharat and all these things. And this year I'm even more excited about what will be the new mission that will be announced, or missions. I hope it will have to do with education or skilling and health and so forth. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, very, very, very important. I hope that the 75th anniversary will be a kind of milestone, not only for India, but also for the world. I'm pretty sure it will be. And I do hope that at Denmark and India, that we will expand our ties to an even higher, more cordial level. It might look almost impossible when I look into where we are today in our relationship. But we can do a lot of things. We can do a lot of things bilaterally. But I think we also have a moral obligation to work for a better, more peaceful world, more prosperous world, where people with talents, regardless of what kind of talents that they have, that they can really bring all their talents, ambitions to reality. And Denmark and India would form such a platform for those who would like to improve not only your own livelihood, but also the livelihood of all the masses of this fantastic globe. Mother Earth, Dhanyavad. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us on this very special telecast. And I hope to interact with you and bring us to our platform several times in the future as well. Thank you.
Always, always. So, Dhanyavad. Thank you very much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.